What I do is I YouTube whatever key I'm singing in.
Yeah.
So like if you're solo and this is kind of new to you,
It's so good.
pads
really
are, and we actually have the iPad set up to where you can pick the key, so it's going to be really nice. But in your prayer room, and this really helped take the pressure off of my strumming and mistiming and just not knowing. It takes the pressure off, and so you just pick the key out. You can just go like key of A, worship pads. And just find the one that like you really like the tone, because there's pads have different tones with it too. So some are maybe a little bit deeper, more organy or whatever that might be. So find one that you like. I personally will take that link, put it into Musi, which is like a YouTube app that has no commercials, and then I just put that on loop. So if it's like 10 minutes, it just goes until whenever you're done.
And why not just do this when you're doing your devotionals? Like, you don't always have to sit down and be like, I'm going to practice now. But like, just turn it on when you're doing your devotionals in the morning or whatever, and be like, hey, if I am reading about this, maybe I want to sing about it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the simplest of the simplest ways, and it really is helpful for beginners and for people that have done it for a while, to just always have something in the background so you can stop. And that keeps going. It's just the key that you're singing in. So I've written down a couple people to look up and see how they do it, how they communicate, if there's videos, how much they repeat, whatever they're doing, to see how are other people doing this. Like I said, a lot of times they include the more I don't know how to say it. It's not like more, it's just more, takes up less time. Even if you're looking at spontaneous, they're not going to include like, here's 10 minutes of us just doing an instrumental, unless they really want to, but it's not common. But I promise they are doing it together. It's just if they're releasing videos, it's probably just going to be more put together. So check out Bethel Spontaneous, which I said just YouTube this, House Fire Spontaneous. United Pursuit Spontaneous, Upper Room Spontaneous. Check out those groups. They're all doing this. The best one, which you have to get SoundCloud to do, is, not the best one, but like the people that lead worship only with Spontaneous is called Gospel House, and they're on SoundCloud. And they're just really helpful to see what are they doing. They do a lot of the same things, but they don't lead with any lyrics or like plans usually. They just start and they go with a lot of the same chords. Some good progressions to try. This is my favorite progression. 6-5-4-1. And the reason that I like it, the reason that I like it is because 4-1-6-5 is also one of my favorites. And so if you just kept going on one of these, you can change it, but not actually, because this just moves over here. So if you decided to start on the 4 instead at some point, it's like you have a whole new progression. And you don't, it's the same. But this is my favorite. So yeah, pay attention to what chord you're starting on. And try and start on the same one every time for a little while. I know I'm going through this really fast. There is a video to remember this. He'll send it to you. Sorry. Another thing to focus on is the lead-in to what you're singing a vocal lead-in or an instrumental lead-in. So a vocal lead-in is when you start singing before the first instrument hits their chord. So let's say King of My Heart, always my example. The reason I don't use more examples is because when we get into the practice, it's all people can think about. So I'm trying not to use very many because that happens sometimes. Okay, so King of My Heart goes, you are good over the 6. That is a vocal lead-in, a singing vocal lead-in. There's also like a vocal leading, a leader vocal leading, where you can say, sing, you are good, you are good, good. So if there's not a clear vocal lead-in, sometimes you want to say, sing this with us again, because people don't always know if you're going to sing it again, especially if there's an instrumental leading. For example, in the bridge part, it goes, oh, well, it does the one. And it goes, 1, you're never gonna let me down. Instrument, you're never gonna let. So start looking at some of your chord sheets and just noticing. If you just start noticing, it'll become natural. And you'll know when to start leading people and telling people, sing that again. Or a lot of times, there's not a lot of room between you're never gonna let me down, you are good. So sometimes I go, you're never gonna let me down, you're good, you are good. So just think about how to lead people well, because your job is to facilitate people, and you want people to know what's going on if you want them to sing with you. Okay, are there any questions so far on all of that craziness? Yes?
This doesn't really have to do with that, but
Okay.
it's just a general question. Anyone have tips on what to do with all the pressure that I personally feel when I'm leading worship? It is so intense, and when I'm in God's presence, I don't feel any of that. When I'm at home alone, but the minute I'm in front of someone, it's this attack of so much pressure. I don't know if it's my background or what, but it's just a common thing that I really struggle with, and it really keeps me from feeling God's presence if I'm having this constant pressure feeling. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Just wondered if anybody
Kendra,
had any tips.
Were you here first of all when we talked about you not being the leader?
Yeah, that was really good.
It is constant reminder.
Yeah.
Kendra.
Yes, I have that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Last night.
Super
last night, all the time. What helps me a lot is when I'm feeling that pressure and I'm feeling oh my gosh, if I don't do this right, they're not going to understand the Lord. That's what I have to repent. Because
it's such a lie.
That pressure is just, I'm putting it on myself. Because I had that pressure a lot at the burn the last time, right in the beginning, because there weren't very many people there and there weren't very many people singing. And if I don't hear people singing or see people worshiping, I'm I'm doing a bad job. They're not into it. But I have to remember that it's not about me doing it well, and it's not about me leading them into the presence of God, because that's not my job. My job is just to be background noise for God to work.
Yeah.
And so, it helps me to repent, and to realize that I'm feeling this pressure, and realize that pressure is not helping anything, and it's just making me try to take control instead of God take control. And so I have to repent and give Him all of the control as I'm worshiping, if that helps.
For me, number one, I don't expect anything of myself, because I just know where I'm at. But there's a song by Upper Room that Joel sings that says, I don't care if I've got 2 left feet, I'm going to dance this thing out. And then I don't care if I cannot sing. I think it's this song's going to come out or something like that. I would listen to that, and the moment you feel that pressure, just go into that song.
Right.
And
Yeah.
just sing over that pressure of it doesn't matter.
No left feet.
Yeah, 2 left feet. And just sing over that situation. It doesn't matter if I can't dance or if I can't sing, I'm gonna worship you anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Because there's a couple things that I've really come back to. First of all, probably most of us were raised in churches or go to churches now where if you're not singing when people are worshiping, something's wrong. You should be singing with everybody. So people have the right in this atmosphere to show up and not have to sing, especially if they're going to be there for a long time, right? They have the right to just take it in. How often in our churches, maybe some of you guys go to really spirit-filled open churches, but how often do we really just get the opportunity to just be? Right? So sometimes, I'm a crazy worshiper, really wild. So I can't put my own thing on somebody else of what I expect them to do. especially since a lot of times I learned how to just sit and be in God's presence and to, be chill also. So that's one thing, is we can't expect people to react in a way. If they're there, they probably want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's probably not much forcing them to be there. Yeah.
And I guess it would be like maybe a check, just to be honest, maybe you just check yourself, okay, what's my agenda?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? It's a heart posture check too.
Yeah.
Not saying that your heart's in the wrong place, but it's a reminder, like if you're feeling that, like, okay, what is my agenda? Am I here?
Right.
Am I here to please people? Am I here to be in God's presence? And like I'm always doing heart posture checks with myself, like all the time. And if anyone's around me verbally processing, you'll hear me try to, like, okay, am I here in this moment? Am I not here in this moment? And so like I say like, hey, it's a heart posture check, a heart moment, but like I do that to myself all the time. So don't think I'm just like saying it, like it's legit. Like when just remind yourself, okay, do I have an agenda, or is the purpose still hosting God's presence? And it just like takes that perspective.
Getting
A lot of
paid
pressure,
for
right?
leading worship,
Yeah.
and that pressure of like,
Totally.
oh my gosh, if I don't do well, like I might not come back to this church.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
whatever. As a guest, I did a lot of fill-in worship leading,
Right.
so it's like that mindset.
And we're coming out of a culture that is very much, we worship perfection, we worship, and a lot of the conversations is how do we get people engaged in the congregation, how do we do this? Which I'm not saying bringing your best is a bad thing, because I love God so much that I only want to offer Him my best.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And engaging people is good.
And engaging people is
But-
good, but if that's your
Yeah.
focus, if that's your agenda, then we've gotten distracted of our purpose.
Yeah.
And so it might take some time, like just that whole one, going back to the Israelites in the desert learning to host God's presence. 40 years they learned, right? Don't expect that you're going to have this perfect over one burn. Like this is a process. We're not, and I think you might have already said this. God's not afraid of the process, so just be available for Him to work.
Yeah,
That's it.
totally. And I think it's so cool that God, we told you just show up with 4
Yeah.
songs, right? And
I don't.
I think it's so
It's
wonderful
cool.
because that's what I'm saying. Now if somebody shows up and they have 20 songs, cool. This is not a
That
rule.
was last time. I had it all. I mean, I left
Yeah.
a few spaces, but it's pretty much planned out.
Yeah, no, and honestly, if you get all those voices in your head, you can at least know that some of the leaders of the bird stood up here and told you the exact opposite. And you can say, even if everybody in this room hates this right now, which I highly doubt will happen, you can say, they told me to, and God told me to.
And
Exactly.
I want to talk, and
Yeah.
going on to that, like, because I've been really studying vulnerability, and if you guys have interacted with me in the last week or a week and a half, I've been like a mess. So, like, yeah. And so, like, but literally vulnerability means to be exposed. And so like when we're vulnerable in our worship, we are exposing ourselves to like be hated. You know what I mean? Like for people to say that's not good worship. That's called vulnerability. And like and we can't have intimacy without vulnerability. We can't with God, like we can't let Him be our protector if we don't expose ourselves and say, okay, now protect these areas, Just like Mary of Bethany, when she broke open her alabaster jar, she was hated by everybody in the room. She was vulnerable when she broke open that jar. And that's what we're doing here, is we're just exposing ourselves and we're just being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that was something that, what I wanted to share with you was I don't know if you were in here when James was sharing this earlier, but just bringing our secret place into the burn, instead of it being like performance-based, where it truly is our personal heart of worship being brought into a public space. And, that is the heart of the burn.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thank you. That's so wonderful, you guys. Other thing, if people are really worried, I don't know what you signed up for this month,
I'm
but
not signed up. I'm just waiting to see what's
well,
happening.
if you're really worried, best thing for people who are newer, or if you're doing something new, is the night watch. Because
That's what I'm planning.
the most passionate people
Too.
are going to be there, right? They're not going to care that much if they're there at 4 a.m. They, they're not like, well, I came expecting a concert, They're like, I came expecting God.
I would
Not the
rather,
people that, other people that show up
do
at other
that.
times, good, awesome. For people on the video, come at any time. But that is the best place to start, with something new, but don't just do that if you're like, well,